everybody, Josh the RV Nerd here with Bish's RV with your recall report, kind of safety-based information here. And for those who haven't seen one of these from us before, all I do is I check the National Highway Safety Travel Administration, NHSTA, something like that, however those acronyms boil down. Basically, there's a government agency that tracks things like this, that helps broadcast when recalls are issued from a manufacturer. And we put that out there for your safety. It's not about brand, it's not about pointing fingers, it's about making you aware of this stuff. And sometimes if you're the second owner, you may not be notified of that. Today, I've got basically a bad report for Ford today. Unfortunately, Ford's having a bad time. A handful of towable things, and then an interesting thing on some antifreeze. Thankfully, it's easy to spot if you know what you're looking for, and I'm going to help point that out for you. Also, as this series continues to evolve based on your feedback, I'm actually going to flip the video so you can see the scroll more clearly, so I stop cutting off the edge of it. And I'm going to chapter mark more of this so that you can go back after the fact and re-find the recall you're looking for. Please share this information in your social media groups. Again, it's just about keeping people safe. So let's flip the script and get going. So to kick things off, unfortunately, again, I'm not singling anyone out, but Ford's getting a double kick in the teeth today. There's a braking system, a software issue on some of their, I think, 21s and 22s, affecting a total of potentially over 390,000 vehicles out there. So this is something that, Ford shops can get thankfully it's software and not hardware, so it doesn't take physical stuff. It just takes basically a tech has to plug a computer into your thing and beep, beep, boop, beep, boop, and get that thing sorted out, but definitely one you're going to want to take care of. Also related to Ford, affecting about another 157,000 F-150s, their most popular thing, naturally. There's an issue with their windshield wiper motors where they just may become inoperable, which obviously could affect your visibility going down the road, which is a safety issue. And that's what these things are. If it's something that would affect people, when you're towing, when you're driving, or if it's like fire hazard stuff, that's what these kind of recalls tend to be about here. Now, jumping over to the towable things, sometimes I see similar recalls come out from multiple manufacturers all at the same time, which usually tells me it's some sort of supplier related issue. And it's difficult to see that sometimes from the consumer perspective because the recalls are issued by the RV manufacturer. In this case, the first of these, you may hear several of these sound the same. KZRV has put out a little thing on some of their Sport Trek, Sonics Connects, a handful of things where the trailer may disconnect from the vehicle in transit. Obviously a bad day down the highway. Jumping over to Keystone RV, they've discovered that some of their units with their Solar Flex package, which is their standard solar package, may have had something like the charge controller wired improperly, which could cause other things like safety detectors basically to stop working properly. They're not exactly sure which may not have. So your thing in that list might be just fine, but basically a dealer just has to pop out a voltage detector like a multimeter. Which one is that? I don't know. Multimeter sounds very fancy and proper, doesn't it? Yeah. We don't call it a speedometer or whatever. You get the idea. I'm sorry. Anyway, I don't even know why you guys watch me. Now, jumping over to Forest River, but this is almost the exact same thing that we talked about with KZRV, with vehicles and trailers potentially coming detached. I failed to really explain what was going on the KZs. The chassis coupler may be welded improperly. It needs to be inspected, which again, I think that's more of a supplier related thing. The thing there is that could be, again, not a Forest River or a KZ issue because they receive the chassis and then they build on it, but rather going back down the supply chain a little bit. So this is something that's probably going to affect multiple manufacturers. I'll be surprised if we don't see continued recurring reports of this for a while, kind of like that big giant propane regulator recall that was out there. It's just like every month another manufacturer is listing more units affected by this. This is probably another instance of something like that. Also technically under the Forest River umbrella, but the thing with Forest River, if you didn't know, it's like a collection of unrelated companies. Sometimes they're a little related, sometimes they're completely competitive to one another. But it sounds like probably, again, a similar supplier, because I'm seeing it's under Forest River. Some of these are Coachmen, some are Forest Rivers. These are built by different camps. A 50 amp inlet wiring may be loose. Again, I think that's probably a supplier related issue, but these are the brands that might be affected by that. Wiring loose could become a short, could become a fire hazard, could become a lot of things. So make sure you get that checked out. Yeah. Here's one, Winnebago, same thing. The coupler may not be welded properly. I'm looking at the brand names that are mentioned here, and I believe Norco is the provider of the chassis. That might be the consistent link between all these. So that might be what's going on, is that something was maybe not being final checked properly coming out of their facilities. I don't know. That's speculation. Again, I'm not trying to drag anyone through the dirt, simply trying to explain, share, and educate, and we'll move ourselves on. Heartland RV, affected by a similar thing to Forest River, where a 50 amp power inlet may be not, the wires may not be properly secured, which could cause shorts, fires, all the things that we discussed before. Unfortunately, again, it looks like they're kind of dealing, it sounds like there's a lot of different supplier related things going on in this recall batch. Huh. Similarly, can't talk. Also, don't read that sign, and don't ask what I had for lunch. It's brain food. Alliance is having a thing where their 50 amp power cord inlets may not have been wired properly. Can be a safety thing. Please get that checked out. Or if you know somebody with an Alliance, share this with them so they could check that out themselves. Or hear about this to get it checked. You know what I'm saying, right? Knee bone to leg bone. Over at Palomino, Puma trailers and fifth wheels, some of their outside kitchens may have been... basically, when you close like a camp cooker or a griddle or something like that, there has to be a propane shutoff so that it can't accidentally keep running. If somebody closes it, they can't accidentally put a flame inside their RV effectively. And it sounds like some of those, the bypass or the cutoff was missed, or maybe isn't working properly. So make sure you get that checked out if you have a one of the 22 Pumas that could be affected here. Not to belabor the point a little bit, but I have to fill a little bit of time as the scroll goes across the screen. Keystone is dealing with that welded coupler issue from their supplier and some of their ultralight brands. Again, it looks like the Norco chassis may be the common culprit thread here. If I didn't leave you enough time, hit the pause button, read what you need on the screen, okay? Forest River Surveyor has a little thing. I think it's related to their furnace, but one of the, I can't remember, one of the propane burning devices on it, the fresh air intake tube may not have actually been long enough. It might be short, which could allow basically for a buildup of carbon monoxide within the RV. Where that's especially tricky is you can't smell it, you can't taste it, you just get sleepy, and then you go to sleep and you unfortunately don't wake up. CO stuff is very serious. And have that checked out if you know your RV would be part of this list over here. Don't mess around with that and just like roll the dice. A name I don't see pop up here too awful often, Lance, sounds like on some of their truck campers may have routed a cable incorrectly, which would, it could be in contact with like a high heat source within the RV, which could cause the shielding on the cable to potentially melt away, cause a short, cause a fire, cause all kinds of bad things. Back to the 50 amp power cord inlet thing not being wired properly. Unfortunately, it looks like Grand Design has some models affected by that. Again, hit the pause button as this scrolls through to take a little more time to read if needed. Over to Jayco on some of their White Hawks. It sounds like they're having a similar, but it doesn't sound like exactly same issue with their 50 amp power cord inlets. So again, this is 50 amp specifically. They're 30 amp units. Different hardware doesn't seem to be affected. But these sounds like the lug nuts that screw everything, that whole thing together. They're the wrong type of material, so they weren't able to like properly grab, evidently, and it could basically wiggle loose, and then that could cause things to split, short, become exposed, fire hazards, all kinds of things from there. And it does look like Keystone's maybe using some of that same hardware. They appear to be having the exact same thing go on that we just described from that White Hawk. So once again, not a lot of time talking about this. Pause if you need more time to review. And something different, finally, instead of the coupler and the wiring thing that we've heard a lot about this time around. Still with Keystone, it sounds like certain, I think, passports may have been outfitted with potentially underrated either axles or tires. And that hardware thing is I mean, that's a big deal because you overload an RV. And as RVs have gotten heavier and cargo capacities have gotten lower, that's become more and more of an everyday, like, you better check into that kind of concern. But is as big as that sounds, like, oh my gosh, the axles, it's actually surprisingly not hard to get that kind of stuff swapped out. And thankfully, any of these recalls, all that stuff is all done at no charge to you guys. Also related to Keystone, one specific floor plan, their 29 FKD, it sounds like as people have towed them more over time, they've discovered they're an outrigger, like one of the support things that holds from the chassis rail to the exterior sidewall. There's a support there called an outrigger, if you didn't know. One of those may have not have been properly placed from the engineering perspective, and if the suspension is completely depressed, the tires could actually grind against that outrigger briefly, which you know, could very quickly either cause wear and tear, could lead to increased chance for blowouts and all kinds of things. So that is something that's been put out there, I think from 2019 to 22 on that floor plan, but it is one specific floor plan among the Cougar lineup. Jumping over to the world of motorized RVs, Newmar's put out a little notice on a handful of 21 and 22 new Air and Dutch Stars. That's right. Oh, it's on the screen. I don't know why I even feel the need to say it. Where something in the steering column may not have been tightened properly, which could cause them to, you know, stop steering properly, which is obviously a major concern when you've got tens of thousands of pounds of rolling death machine that you can't control. And finally, not trucks, not trailers, not motorhomes, but antifreeze, because this is the kind of thing that a lot of people don't. I don't know that everybody realizes. You can't just use any antifreeze in an RV. Like, there's automotive antifreeze, there's RV antifreeze, there's different things. You use the wrong kind of antifreeze in an RV, you could kill people, basically. RV antifreeze is supposed to be pink. There's a company who puts out antifreeze called Shop Pro, who it sounds like through their manufacturing process, the RV antifreeze label got put on some bottles of blue, not RV antifreeze. So it's very visual. But long story short, here's the big takeaway for this. RV antifreeze is always supposed to be pink, you know, or marine antifreeze, whatever. But antifreeze that can go through water lines and not leave a residual poison, basically, like methanol poisoning. So if you ever see antifreeze that's not pink, don't put it in your RV, please. That's the big takeaway I want everyone to go from this. Not just a recall, but just general safety advisory. And that is it for this month, ladies and gentlemen. Once again, thank you for tuning in. I need to do a better job of keeping on this. That's a commitment that I made earlier this year. And just as I've continued to adjust in my new role, I apologize. I've slipped on that. For anyone who's kind of curious, you know, I have missed, I think, 1 month of these recall reports. Apologies for that. That's on me. That's not on Bish's. Basically, I'm allowed to kind of operate on my own. And with all of these new RVs that I suddenly have to record, I kind of lost track of how much time I was spending doing that. And I realized my tips, tricks, my safety information kind of slipped. So that's on me. That's not on the company. I'm going to try to do a better job of balancing these things, just like I did this time, to try to get this out for you. And once again, if you're in an RV Facebook group or something like that, or if you know somebody who has an Alpine or whatever thing that may have showed up in this list, please send this to them. Worst case scenario, they don't need it and they just delete it. But I'd rather they see this and not need it than need it and not see it. That's a bad situation to be in. So as always, if you appreciate the information we put out here for you, even safety related stuff like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button, like our video. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care, stay safe, have fun, and best wishes from Bishes, everyone.